What's up, War Report family? We are back with another great edition of the Auburn Mix. Joining me today is very special guest from Auburn women's basketball, Taylen Collins, joining me to talk a little bit about what she's got going on. Taylen, let's jump right into the important stuff. I was told that as a child, you would show up to your brother's games in high-heeled shoes and speaking in an English accent. What's up with that?
How do you know that? How do you know that?
What's up with the English accent? Did you want to be English?
Well, I wanted to be an actress at one point.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and so I was just, flexing that I could do different voice impersonations.
That's important to an actress, right?
Yeah, right. So, yeah, that was always fun for me.
All right, cool. Casual flex.
Yeah.
Part of that story is you have a brother, and he played basketball. How did you get interested in basketball? Was it watching your brothers play, or how did you fall in love with basketball?
It was something that my entire family did. So my dad played, and so we kind of just fell into those footsteps after him. And getting to see my brother play, I was in the gym with them all the time. So it just kind of was a flow of things.
Now, you played your first 3 college years at Oklahoma State, and you made the decision to come to Auburn and play for Johnny Harris. Talk to me a little bit about the decision to play for Johnny. Why Auburn? It seems like a lot of people are making that same decision.
Yeah. Really, it was just the family aspect that brought me in. And I know a lot of people talk about the culture and just the game time experience and just the family aspect of things. But that was really big for me. And coming here, it just made me feel like I didn't want to leave. On my visit, I was really like, I have to go home. I really wanted to stay, and just seeing how the players connected with one another and how the coaches, just their relationship with the players, it was something that I wanted for myself. So.
Well, you guys had some success on the basketball court last year. I would say you had some success that nobody anticipated in that you made the tournament.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about what fuels you guys as a team. 40 minutes of hell. That's what they call Auburn women's basketball on defense. And you were a big part of that. Night in and night out, you got everybody's best scorer. What kind of mentality does Taylen Collins have to guard the best scorer and shut down the best scorer every game?
Really for me, it's like a pride thing.
Okay.
I hate getting scored on. And I know, basketball is a game of up and downs and runs, and you're going against great players who, have been playing this game for a long time. So it's going to happen, but I try to keep that at a minimum. And, it's like a burn in you whenever you get scored on. It's just okay, that's not happening again. So that's kind of my mentality each and every game, is just I try to make it harder for them to do what normally comes so easy for them. So
Johnny, she prides herself on teams that have good defense. Now, you guys have some new pieces. Talia Scott and Deanna Gaston have joined this team. You guys have gone through some practices. What are you seeing from them? Have they bought into 40 minutes of hell?
I really it really gets me excited to see how quickly they're eager to learn and wanting to do things right, because it's really what it comes down to with defense is the little things. And so for them to be so adaptive and wanting to buy into how we do it at Auburn, it's very promising and it's really exciting.
Part of a good program are good assistants. And I have been to practices and watched you interact with Coach Katera and Coach D and Coach Fred. What has your relationship with them been like, and how are they instrumental in your kind of day-to-day success and growth?
They're always a good time, especially whenever you have those hard practices, just being able to talk to them and just kind of get out of your head so much, because they're always encouraging you and just letting you know that you got this, but they're also keeping you holding you accountable. So if they know that you're not necessarily bringing your best to the table, they have a way of just getting that out of you and bringing that out of you. And so just to get to be around them, especially with Coach C being my position coach, her knowing how I play, her helping me want to grow my game. And so it's great to be around people like that who have your back.
Yeah, you talk about growing your game. What kind of things are you working on this offseason personally to grow your game as a player?
Well, I'm definitely taking on a different position, so that's going to be more of like handling the ball, and like coming off of screens and stuff. So really just making myself comfortable with that, like stretching my game offensively, and a lot of just wanting to make my like inside jumper range like lethal. And so yeah, that's kind of like what the goal is, and we've been working really hard on it, and we're gonna keep working hard on it.
I saw some video of you working on a mid-range game.
Yeah.
How hard is that at this point in your career? Like, are you changing the mechanics of your shot, or like?
It's just like, it's really just like little tweaks that Coach Jay and like Coach C have been helping me work on. And so it really, I feel like, especially now, I just feel like I'm a sponge, like constantly wanting to soak up and do anything that I can to make myself better. And so when you like really want something and you're willing something, then it's just like, it's gotta happen.
Okay. Auburn lost Taylen 6 conference games at an average of 4.5 points last year. There were some losses in there that probably stung a little bit. Do you have a game circled for this year? Who do you want to get back against? Now, you beat LSU. Yeah, you beat LSU once. They got you twice, right? But like, you know, who do you want revenge against this year?
Get back.
Ole Miss. That was a 3-point loss.
Yeah.
58-55.
And I would say, okay, we could go with Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Yeah.
Because I was gonna say, well, we got Arkansas back in the.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
So yeah, we're gonna go Ole Miss.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Coach Yo was doing some great things down there, but that one. When I was covering that one, I was like, this was a winnable game. It was a winnable game. Going back to the improvements that you guys are looking for as a team, what do you feel like the difference was in those 3-point, 2-point losses last season? And, you know, how are you guys going to avoid those pitfalls this year?
I just feel like because like Auburn's always been known as a defensive team. And so I just feel like with the pieces that we've added on, like Talia and Dee, they bring more of an edge offensively. And I feel like just those pieces alone will, you know, be those extra 2 or 3, 4 points. And so I feel like once we're able to, you know, mesh together this year, I feel like that's going to be the stride that we needed.
I've seen Honesty Scott-Grayson back with the program this offseason, kind of helping you guys in drills. Her game looks sharp as ever, by the way. Like, she doesn't look like she's lost a step. How has it helped you guys to have her around the program this offseason as you continue to try to find another gear without her?
It's helped a lot. Like, she was so great for us offensively. And so for her to be back and like playing against her, it's a little annoying, you know, when she's like doing what she used to do for us. But no, just like getting to play against her, and especially the caliber of a player that she is, it helps a lot, and it pushes our other guards to step in and fill in those shoes. Yeah,
I enjoyed watching her play last year, and then watching her practice. It was crazy to think that she's gotten better since then. I personally think the Mystics made a mistake by not adding her to the roster.
I agree.
But hopefully she gets a call here at some point. You know, what do you see in the future for Taylen Collins? You had a chance maybe to go pro, but decided to return to Auburn for another year. What played into your decision to decide to come back? Unfinished business?
Yeah, okay. And just like really wanting to grow and develop my game, because I know like no one can ever be perfect, but I want to strive for that. And so just being able to have a staff that spend so much time with you whenever, like, you know, you reach out and say, hey, can you get in the gym with me, and just like grow that, and then be able to play against these caliber of teams, and just getting to be more comfortable, especially with me being in this new position. And so just, you know, kind of finalizing those things. So.
Okay. Auburn has added some new pieces, not only from the portal, but from high school. So you've got the reigning Alabama Player of the Year here, and you've got Marquise Daniels' daughter who has joined the program. So Soraya and Jordan have joined. What have you seen from the young ones so far?
They work really hard. They're constantly in the gym. I see videos of them getting shots up and working with their trainers and just doing anything that they need, because I know that they know that it's a different level from high school to college. And I just feel like they're willing to do what is necessary to make Auburn great, and that's what we need. Those are the type of players that we need, is to buy in and want to push Auburn further.
What kind of things does a freshman go through from high school to college? Like, what kind of things did you have to adjust to when you got where, you came from a high school where you were it, and now you're playing with all those it girls, right? Like, how hard is that adjustment?
It can be challenging a lot, because you're playing against great players who have been, in playing at the collegiate level for a few years, and it's different with the physicality of it, with the speed, with the IQ, and so everything seems fast at first until you're going into it yourself, and then everything starts to eventually slow down. And so being a freshman, that's just something it's going to be rough at first. You have to be okay with it being rough, but you have to just want to want to get better.
Taylen, take me back to Auburn versus Arizona. Disappointing ending, I think, to a season. Personally, I think you guys got hosed on the seeding. How certain teams got a 7 seed and you guys got into the play-in. I will not understand that. But your draw is your draw, and you've got to play who's in front of you. And you guys came up short against Arizona. Was this your first NCAA tournament? No, it wasn't your first tournament, right? How disappointing was that end, right? How disappointing was that end?
It was very disappointing, especially getting drawn the seed that we did, having to play the play-in game, because we knew the work that we put in all throughout the year.
It felt like disrespect, right?
Yeah, we were definitely hoping that we, wouldn't have to do the play-in game. But we didn't. We came in, we didn't perform the way that we should have performed, and it ended up biting us in the butt. So it was devastating, especially because you wanted those for the seniors that weren't going to be able to come back. That didn't have the eligibility, the extra year. And so it was hard. It was hard.
I got a chance to talk to Jemiah, and I think it's okay to say now, but she rolled her ankle in warm-ups, and her ankle was as big as a melon, so she toughed that out. While you were watching, it was like, where's Jemiah? Why isn't she on the floor more? And she was a great secondary scoring option next to Honesty this year, so to not have her at full strength maybe hindered you guys a little bit. Do you feel maybe this year that you have the depth that one injury won't hinder you as much?
Yeah, I feel like that, because I feel like with the players that we brought in players that are more offensive minded and know what it's like to score, to put the ball in the hole.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that'll help us a ton.
Yeah, Talia is definitely not scared to shoot.
Not at all.
I think Deanna's got a good mid-range game as well too. She can shoot the threes. Yeah, she can shoot the three.
She can stretch out there for sure.
And then I want to talk about down low, right? So before we started recording, you told me about your previous coach maybe wanting to play you at the 5. You're definitely better at the 4. But at the 5 this year, you've got a young and promising player in Yakaya, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about Yakaya and what you see from her and how she's developing so far.
Just getting to see, even last season, just towards the end, you could really start to see her get comfortable and start to sprout a little bit. And it was really exciting to see okay, now she's starting to tap into what we've been trying to bring out of her all along. And so she's tall, she's athletic, she can alter shots. And so now with her feeling more comfortable and getting her footing, she's going to be a big offensive threat too. So really just continuing to bring that out of her and then pushing that further. She's going to be really special, and I'm excited to see where her career takes her.
It was interesting to see her height really bothered Angel Reese and Camilla and some of the better bigs in the conference. So I know Coach Jay is going to have some physical goals for her to reach so
Mm-hmm.
that she can be a dominant player for you guys down there. But in closing, let's just talk about where Auburn women's basketball is going. Last year, you set an attendance record.
Mm-hmm.
People came out to see you guys in record numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine there might be record numbers again this year, but where do you see this team in March next year?
Definitely making it a lot deeper. Sweet 16.
Okay. All right. So we're saying Auburn's in the tournament next year.
Yes.
I tried to tell people that last year and they didn't want to listen, but maybe they'll listen to you.
Maybe they'll listen this year because like we put in the work. We do what we need to do, especially with the right pieces too.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, it's just getting it all to mesh together and go into play. And being able to practice now and just seeing kind of like a little sneak peek of what we're gonna have, it's really exciting. And I hope that people are just as excited as we are to come out and see what we have, see what we got.
Auburn fans, you heard it here first. Taylen Collins says Sweet 16 next year. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do. Taylen, I want to thank you for joining me here on this edition of the Auburn Mix. Guys, that's it for another edition of the Auburn Mix. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle. What's up, War Report family? We are back with another great edition of the Auburn Mix. Joining me today as a guest that's no stranger to our show here at the War Report, co-host of Crane & Co. over on the Daily Wire, Jake Crane joins me. Let me bring Jake in here. Jake, thanks for joining me, man, to talk a little Auburn football today. How are you doing?
Man, Mike, first off, it's great to join you, buddy. Excited to see you guys at Media Days here soon. Now, look, we're getting closer to football. Every day we get closer. Just excited, man. Like I've said multiple times, I think Auburn is in a place right now, at least a place of momentum and alignment between the administration, the fan base, the coaches, the players that we haven't had in a while, and the last recipe is going to be putting it out in the field. So I'm I feel as good as I've felt in a while at this point as we barrel toward toe meat and leather.
Well, let's jump right in here. I want to piggyback off something you just said about alignment. When we had our one-on-one sit-down with Hugh Freeze, he talked about Peyton Thorne maybe sensing the alignment between him and the staff that he has now. Now, we all know Philip Montgomery out, Derek Nix in. They made some other changes on that staff with Cadillac going to the Raiders. How much is that alignment going to be worth for Auburn? Last year, you had a disappointing G5 loss. You gave up 4th and 31. You had Alabama beat. Is that good for 2-3 games here on this schedule? They got 8 home games, Jake.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, if we're going to put alignment in the sense of chemistry between the players and the coaches, and really the players and the players, Auburn there was some turnover. There typically is at this level. But when you look at just, Hugh Freeze and the way he operates with the quarterbacks, yes, was Philip Montgomery the offensive coordinator last year? That's true. Him and Peyton Thorne did spend a lot of time together, but Hugh Freeze is very involved with the quarterbacks as well. So, and anytime you have, especially in today's ever-changing landscape of college football with the transfer portal and everything else that comes along with that, any sort of familiarity or any sort of stability is like having an extra arrow in your quiver, right?
Yeah.
It puts you ahead of the game. Even if you're bringing in a new transfer quarterback, they have to learn the terminology, something Peyton Thorne had to do last year. But I think maybe more of the chemistry is with this style of offense for Peyton Thorne. Do not forget, when Peyton was at Michigan State, that was a much more pro style of offense than what Auburn ran last year with the RPO and the way your eyes work and the decision-making and the timing. I think the nuances of being in that new offense, even forgetting the terminology, which for a lot of these older guys, is the toughest part because a lot of people call the same thing something different.
Right.
to me, I think his familiarity with how quick the decisions have to be made, speaking specifically about the RPO, right? Where you're looking at, and then kind of the circumstances that you can't really prepare for in the meeting room. Like what happens, something that happened in a game last year that may not have been worked on because you can't work on everything. That's impossible. I think that type of stability and alignment and familiarity with Peyton Thorne is maybe the most crucial element, to be honest with you.
Yeah, look, I spoke with Peyton Thorne. Yeah, it feels like I'm having one-on-ones with everybody these days, Jake. And he certainly gave me confidence that some of the behind-the-scenes changes will result in a better on-field product here in 2024. But let's stick with Peyton Thorne here. At Michigan State, he was a 2,600 to 3,200 yard guy. He didn't come anywhere close to that last year. How does Hugh Freeze get Peyton Thorne from bottom of the conference in passing to at least middle of the conference in passing? We're talking about 2,600 yards. And, what do you think that'll be good for Auburn?
Well, there's always, we always say the quarterback gets too much credit when it's going good and too much blame when it's going bad. But I think there was an equal amount of blame on Peyton Thorne's, passing ability last year overall. I mean, we can remember, there were some games where he was putting the ball where it needed to be, but there were some where it was just way off. It wasn't just off. It's one thing to miss the strike zone by a little bit to where the umpire will give you some. It's another to miss so far out of the zone that the pitching coach has to come out and settle you down. I mean, you go back to the A&M game, there's a handful of games that I thought Peyton Thorne just didn't throw the ball well. So there is blame to be had there. But look, football is the ultimate team sport, right? He didn't have enough weapons around him to be able to take some of that pressure off of him or scare defenses away from doing one thing, and that's what? Stopping the run. You stop the run, Auburn can't beat you through the air. Balance is the best way to attack everything, and I think that's why the RPO and I'll go back to it, the run-pass option, to me as a defensive guy is one of the hardest things to defend because there are multiple options that happen throughout the play. You can't hone in on one thing. But if you can't throw the ball even when you keep it on the RPO action, it negates that a little bit. It makes that nickel a little bit heavier or slot corner, whatever you want to call him, to the run. But as far as Peyton Thorne, outside of the obvious, having Rivaldo Fairweather come back, right, getting Cam Coleman, getting Robert Lewis, getting Lambert from Penn State, I think this offensive line is going to give him more comfortability where he's not going to stare at the pass rush as much. I don't think people realized last year, and not during the RPO actions, but during the drop back passes, right, or when Auburn was in true passing situations, it seemed like Peyton Thorne didn't trust his offensive line. Now, was that the worst offensive line that Auburn's had in the past 3 to 4 years? No, but it wasn't fantastic, or at least enough to give him confidence. So I think when you look at the way this offensive line is transitioned and the ability to have the weapons around him soften the way that defenses pinpoint Auburn, I think that's going to give him confidence to get in that second read. And if you watch him at Michigan State, a lot of the passing yards that he had weren't these amazing posts that he threw. Wasn't the 9 route or the vertical route that he was just dropping in the bag. A lot of it was, hey, my first option's not there. Hey, here's my second option for 7. Or I'm going to spit the swing out or the check release out to the running back, who happened to be Kenneth Walker, who was dangerous enough with the ball in his hands on the outside. So look, there's no harm. The way you increase your passing numbers, obviously you want to hit the big plays, right? Off play action. You got to have guys on the outside that can catch a short pass and make somebody miss. You got to have guys on the outside that can go up and turn a 50-50 ball into an 80-20 ball. Now, Peyton's got to put them in a position to do that, but a lot of those yards can be made up when you settle for the check down. It's amazing. Those 4 or 5 yard gains, not only do they get you in 2nd and 5 and 2nd and 6, but when you add them up at the end of the game, you're like, man, we threw 6 check downs and got 48 passing yards off of it and 3 first downs. Like that's how you accumulate those extra numbers. I'll never forget, Mike, and not to get too long-winded, but I always try and take from experiences of guys that played at the highest level. And when I was coaching in junior college, I coached with a guy named Dave Tollefson, who was Michael Strahan's backup for the Giants. He was the white defensive end that did the ninja kick, right? He made that kind of popular and won 2 Super Bowls. And I asked him, I was like, Dave, what were the the hardest quarterbacks for you guys to defend? And he's like, Jake, I'm going to give you an obvious answer, but it's not for an obvious reason. He was like, it was Tom Brady and it was Peyton Manning. And you're like, duh, well, why? He was like, it wasn't because they were going up there making incredible throws on the dig route all the time. They would do that every now and then. They would make the right read on the post or hit Poco in the right way. But what made them good was they knew they would never go broke making a profit. They would throw the check down or the hitch or the third option or the escape hatch all the way down the field if the defense gave them to you. So I think a little bit of that patience comes with comfortability on the offensive line. So just getting Peyton to that last read, I think could increase those numbers and push him over the 2,500-yard passing mark, which I think he can get to with this schedule and these weapons.
That's a bar right there, Jake. A quarterback will never go broke making a profit. And,
Never.
There's nothing wrong with 2nd and 5. I feel like the whole playbook is open from, 2nd
I
and
would
5
love
and
Auburn
4.
to live in 2nd and 5. I will take, it's like you see a house on the market. You're like, I'll buy it. You know what? I'll buy it 10,000 over asking just to get it right now. I'll take 2nd and 5 for 10,000 over asking all day right now for Auburn.
Let's end talking about the schedule. Auburn has 8 home games, but they probably got one of the harder road slates in the country. After 5 straight home games, they go on the road to play Georgia, Missouri, and Kentucky. And then they've got Alabama in Tuscaloosa at the end of the year. So they don't play a home game in October, Jake.
Yeah.
If you add in the second bye week there, what do you see for the schedule? Vegas has set the over-under at 7.5. Last year, a lot of us confidently took the over, and they promptly hit the under. My guy JD PKL over on 3 says over this year. Josh Bates says under. What says Jake Crane?
Well, look, 7.5. That's the perfect number for Vegas, right? Because I think when you look at Auburn from a 30,000-foot view, when you look at roster, who's returning, what have they added? You look at the coaching staff, who's returning, what have they added? Then you look at the schedule. I think 7-5 is the floor for this team. Now the ceiling is a much more interesting argument because look, regardless if you're the biggest Auburn fan of all time, it's going to be hard as hell to go and beat Alabama and Georgia on the road, right? So if you chalk those, and I hate to do this, but I live in the real world. If you chalk those 2 losses up, to get to 9 wins, that basically means you have to hold court at home, which I think Auburn should, in my opinion. And then you have to split, right, one of Kentucky and Missouri to get to that 9-win mark. So I think 8-4 right now is what I have Auburn projected at. I don't make, my final predictions until the end of fall camp. I got to know who gets hurt. I got to know who gets arrested if somebody gets arrested, But when I look at this Auburn schedule, and there's no such thing as an easy schedule in the SEC. I hate when people say that. There's lighter and heavier schedules, but I don't think you could ever look at a schedule and say, man, I tell you what, Auburn plays Missouri, Bama, and Georgia on the road, but that's an easy schedule. No, what will define Auburn's year this year is the first 5 games at home, right? That's crucial. You feel like without a doubt, Auburn should be 4-0 going into the Oklahoma game, right? The 5th game of the season. You look at Oklahoma, and they got that game against Tennessee at home. I think even a 3-1 Oklahoma has a chance to be ranked. But if Oklahoma's 4-0 and Auburn's 4-0 going into that game, I feel like that's the welcome back to relevance game for Auburn, even though I think Oklahoma may be a little bit overrated with what they have returning on the offensive line with a new quarterback who Jackson Arnold's unbelievably talented. He's going to be really good down the road. You're just going to go through ups and downs. And that's Oklahoma's first SEC road game. So when I look at
Auburn,
first time in Auburn and first SEC road game for that new offensive line and quarterback, which that's typically a death sentence in the SEC. So I think starting out 5-0, because Mike, you start out 5-0, everybody's happy. Auburn's back, probably ranked in the top 15. And then guess what? Yeah, you got to go on the road and probably play number 1 Georgia, right? Because I think Georgia's going to beat Clemson to death in week 1. So
Missouri will be top 10.
Missouri will be top 10. So there's some wiggle room in the back half of that schedule for everything not to be hunky-dory. But 8-4, Auburn going 8-4 would be massive. It would be massive, Mike, because there's one ingredient in the recipe for Auburn getting back to where we feel like they should be that they've been missing, right? And that's what? On-the-field production. And that's the most important ingredient. You've got the brand new facility and this beautiful mecca of college football where you got a barbershop in there and you got like VR and all the cool stuff all the kids want. The recruiting is going fantastically, right? The only piece that is missing to prove it to everybody is on the field. And 8-4 to me shows that bridge getting built for Auburn to get back to relevance at the top of the league.
Yeah, it could have been an 8-4 last year if you don't give up 4th and 31 and you beat New Mexico State.
That's true,
Yeah,
Mike.
so-
That's true,
so
Mike.
they were
But
that- they were that close.
if ifs and nuts were candy and butts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And that was with last year's talent. So if they feel like they've upgraded at wide receiver with DeAndre Lambert-Smith coming in from Penn State, you got Robert Lewis from Georgia State, and obviously Cam Coleman's going to start from day one. I think with this schedule, like you said, there's no such thing as an easy schedule in the SEC, but this is one of the easier ones Auburn has had in the last 15 years.
I agree with
Jake,
that.
to me, the season is defined by the stretch that starts with Oklahoma and ends with Kentucky, right? If you can split that 2-2, I think 9 wins might even become a possibility because coming out of that stretch, you'll beat Vanderbilt, you'll beat UL Monroe, and then going into A&M and Bama to finish the season, you have a chance to do something really, really special.
Yeah, Mike, if Auburn splits those 4 road games and goes 2-2, there is absolutely no excuse not to have at least 9 wins. And I can make the argument that if they split those 2 on the road, I think a 10-win season is possible. Because look at the home schedule. I mean, let's be honest. If Auburn's 4-0 and Oklahoma's 4-0, going into that game, that may be the only home game where Auburn is not the favorite. Maybe not by a lot, but when you look at the rest of those home games, who on that list are you looking at and saying, man, this team is if Auburn handles business before, is going to be a favorite on the road? So I feel like Auburn's got as much as going on the road to play Alabama, Georgia, and Missouri. It's hard to classify that as a gift.
Yeah.
But with the rest of the schedule, I mean, I feel like, there are no more excuses, right? There are no more excuses. You got your hall pass loss against New Mexico State, and Hugh Freeze and them know that. But if you're the Auburn team, if you're an Auburn player, the most important thing is the next lift. It's the next meeting, right? It's the next class. We can do this. Me and you can sit here and look at week 4 and look at week 5 and say, oh, Auburn's got to play really good here, that, and the other. But Auburn is not good enough, and no team that is worth their salt is good enough to look past week 1 and really the next lift, the next class, the next meeting. And I think that's what they're doing.
Jake, it's always a pleasure to be able to sit down and talk with you about a little Auburn football. Before we get out of here, tell the people where they can find you over at the Daily Wire.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, it's really easy if you go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well. It's Crain & Company, CRAIN & Company. We do a live show from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Central every weekday. We have live calls, a live chat. If you can't catch it live, it stays on demand, so you can catch it there. We're talking a ton of college football, a lot of Auburn as well. So gearing up for media days, Mike. I'm ready to see you, buddy. It's been a while.
Yeah, me too, man. We'll be out there in about just over a week. So, Jake, thanks for joining me here on this episode of The Mix. Guys, that's it for another great edition of The Mix with my guy, Jake Crain from Crain & Co. Go check them out over on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are The War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.